Thank you very much, Eva. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being prepared to come along in the last session of the day, I believe. It's always a difficult one in terms of you've been here a long time and heard a lot of things. So I'm going to make sure that by the time you leave this session, you leave with some really important information about ISF and Island School in particular. And so most people in Hong Kong who are looking at international schools have heard of ISF, and that's because of the size of our footprint. What I'd like to do today, though, is drill down and remind everybody what's different about our organisation. We are a group that pride ourselves on our commitment to helping every young person be the best they can be, and I'll explain what that means in a variety of different settings as we move on today. And so there are many drivers in the ESF education that are worth understanding because they are used to shape our educational programs, the staff that we hire, and really the experiences that we offer. But generally, these are the drivers that we believe are most important in helping a young person move on and undertake a successful career in any part of the world they choose. So there's an overview of the 22 educational institutions that make up ESF. If you were to see that on a map, what it would show you is that not only do we have the largest footprint of international schools, we also have the geography of Hong Kong surrounded. And that's very important to us because we are woven into the fabric of general Hong Kong community. And we pride ourselves with that. We are not an elite organisation. We do not stand aside from the day-to-day operating in Hong Kong. And we think that's absolutely essential because it provides some wonderful educational advantage to the Island School students and to the ESF students, and I'll explain how a little bit later. Now this presentation itself, whilst giving you just a brief sliver of what ESF stands for, will really focus on secondary education. I'll do that by sharing some information that is applicable to all of ESF secondary schools, but then I'll give you a detailed drill down into Island School, because whilst we are a foundation, there are distinct differences in each of our schools, and they're worth understanding so that you can see what we stand for and perhaps make an informed decision about which school might suit your family, your educational ethos, and the skills and capabilities of your young person as they reach that bridge. But really the presentation today, there's lots of people who come to these things who sometimes haven't started their family or expected families. If you're one of those, thank you very much for coming. Some people are just hitting that bridge where they're looking at early childcare and kindergarten, some people in primary school, and of course some are building that bridge to secondary school. Regardless of where you are, I guess in terms of today's presentation, what I hope I can do is elevate your thinking so that you can imagine your young person by the time they finish with school. Right? Because that is really the focus of a secondary school education. From the day they walk in the door, we are working with them and doing things with them so that they can move on and live the life that you and they believe is most authentic for them. So in terms of that continua, yes, I'm going to point you towards why we create such wonderful opportunities post-18. I'm going to do that by talking about the structure of our curriculum and the way we work, but I want you to remember that the journey doesn't start with ESF when they come to secondary school. From the time they join those early years programs, we have in mind that they will graduate into a secondary school. So we have formulated all of the things we do so that they are designed around the young people, the way they learn, families, and their familiarity with how to add value to that. So what do I want to tell you about secondary schools and ESF? Well, first of all, we're very proud of our footprint, as I mentioned, and generally every year we have close to 1,000 students who graduate with an IB diploma. Last year that was 948 students. 23 of those received the top marks in the IB diploma. Now most students in ESF secondary schools and all through schools in their secondary years study the IB diploma. That's one of the reasons people choose us. It's a global qualification. It enables universities across the world to assess the merits of the achievement of those senior school students and offer with confidence places to them before their final results are received. So it's like if you consider an international passport, that's the same thing that studying the international diploma brings. So that's why it's so popular right the way through the world. And I guess that second dot point is something that I just scratch my head every time I read it. 10% of the highest marks in the world come from ESF schools. 10%. All the countries in the world, 10% come from us. 39 students were only 1 mark away from the top. So 23 got it, 39 away. 33% achieved 40 points or more. So that's a really important that's a really important mark. And if you're not familiar with the diploma, I don't expect you will be. Why that's so important is because that's about the cutoff you need to get into the most sought after universities and the most difficult courses within those universities. You want to be upwards of 40 points. And it also coincides with the scholarship cutoff range as well. 94% of our students exceeded the world mean. So you will know that taking on the diploma is a challenge. It does involve a lot of work, but it has the benefits of doing that. It comes with the benefits. And 94% of the students in ESF achieve above what the average score across the world is. And last year in ESF, 99.7% of students get their diploma. Now, we never make it to 100%. Sometimes we have health-related issues. Sometimes we also have students who want to do their diploma in 3 years rather than 2. So we never make it to 100%, but all of those students are supported to do resits, extra examinations until they get to the point when they graduate. So what do I think, why am I so proud of that? Well, I mentioned to you before the stunning number of students who do so well, but I would like to tell you that within our system, if you come to ESF, you will choose whether your young person does the diploma. That's not the way that it works in lots of other schools. They want you to prove through middle school and through that bridge just before you go to senior school that your young person will be one of those 40 plus students. That's not us. Okay? And so why that's so important is that it feeds into those 948 students, and I think you can view our numbers with confidence in their authenticity. And that's a big thing when you're a parent. Right? You can pick up other schools' websites, you might find out that when you look at the numbers, you go, hang on, that's about 20% of the students in that year level. No, that's not ESF. And the other thing is that we don't have selective entry. So if you are one of those people, expecting parents of young students, you would have already heard from us that when we do look at selecting you, it will be on your ability to understand an English medium of instruction. There is no ranking of how clever you are. There's no looking at your report cards to make sure you're getting A's. That is not important to us. And yet when you consider that, and you go back to that slide I showed you before, I think you will get a true picture of the value add that an ESF education does. And when I drill into how Island School does it in a moment, I hope you'll have the confidence to look at taking a step forward with us. So this is my school in the past. Anybody here been to Borrett Road on the mid-levels? It's a sort of a dead end street. You don't go there unless you go purpose. That might have been a hand wave, or it might have been someone who was frustrated about getting caught on the traffic. But that was our previous campus. It was there, it stood for almost 50 years, and we've demolished it. There is a rumour going around that they used salt water to mix the concrete, which then in turn rotted out the reinforcement, which then caused falling. And when I arrived in Hong Kong 4 years ago, there was scaffolding around the outside of the buildings and netting inside all the rooms. And that was to stop somebody getting hit by a piece of concrete. So it's not there anymore, and I'll come back and revisit that in a little bit more detail later on. It looks like that. And before 2022, Hong Kong's most modern school will rise from that setting. So we're at Sha Tin at the moment, and I took on this job from a great school in Australia. It had 2,600 students right on the beach on the Gold Coast, the kind of job that most principals would work their life to secure and then stay for as long as they possibly could. What brought me to Hong Kong primarily was, from ESF's perspective, I have built 2 new schools before, so they were looking at me. What brought me here was the uniqueness of Island School. And so when I stepped into the campus on the first day with all that netting and scaffolding, what I realised was the school itself needed to modernise. Island School by name, Island School by nature. The students were disconnected from the beating heart of Hong Kong, and that's just not acceptable in this day and age. When it comes from giving students the opportunity to develop their skills, to thrive in their country, to take those skills and anywhere across the world and create extraordinary careers and lives, you need to understand how communities and societies work, and you need to find your way in them. And some of the best ways to do that is to learn to give back. My view of successful people are they don't only create for themselves, they create for their families, and they create for the communities they live in. And I've been working very hard with my colleagues at Sha Tin to make sure that we have reinvented our practices, and we've got some great things that I can share with you a little bit later on. So that's what the two campuses look like. I'd love to have you there at some stage, and there's a virtual tour on our website. I'm not going to drill too much into our results, but across ISF, 5 of those 23 45 pointers came from our school. What I would point out to you there is when I came on to this project, many of our families were upset and worried. The move's going to create all these kinds of disadvantages for the students. It's going to mean the results fall apart. That has not happened. And in fact, quite the opposite has. We have risen through the ranks of international schools as we have created a better balance between authentic education and academic results. What I will say to you, though, in terms of our data, is that like other schools, other ISF schools, we do not tell our students and their families what their young people should do after school. We have the ability to listen to you, to help your young people grow in their skills and abilities, and then help to connect them to the best place to apply that next. So this pie chart is actually a lot more simple than previous years. I think when I put this up last year, there were 23 countries with enough percentages to display. But because of COVID, because of the protests, everything has shrunk, and the most significant change in that is that there's more students on a gap year, and that was at the start of the year. So I would also suspect that there are students deferring out there, and we could be somewhere between 13% of students not engaged in their tertiary education the way they thought they would be. But it is typical for most of our students to go to the UK, and then what has been growing is the number of students who stay in Hong Kong. Now I am very supportive of that. I know that there are many 18-year-olds who are not yet ready to make that bridge to independence. It's not all of them. Some of them, families, students, yep, we're ready, let's go. But I just say to people, because of the quality of education in Hong Kong now, because of the doorways it opens, and because of the way universities collaborate, we don't need to approach it the same way we did when we went to university ourselves. And that's a trend that I expect will keep going. So last year our students went far and wide. They used those scores to choose the universities and the courses that would advantage them. I'd like to show you a video now about what being on Island School on a day-to-day basis looks like.
One special thing that you would hear from any alumni or any student is that Island School has always had like a...
Can we try it again? If you have a problem, we can keep going.
One special thing that you would hear from any alumni or any student is that Island School has always had like a feeling of community, or a feeling of almost like a family between teachers, students, parents. And when you have an environment like that where everyone's friendly and personable and loves doing what they do and loves learning, then that's when you have a real special place, and I think that's what you find here at Island School.
Students at Island School are tremendously diverse, as are their dreams. They come from families who have roots in countries right the way across the world. And with that, they have very different desires about what they need from an education. For this reason, we've developed a very comprehensive base of courses that are particularly focused on helping our young people to further their knowledge in the direction that interests them the most.
The Elements courses really lets us focus into what our passions are and let us tap into new courses, or sometimes even things we haven't thought about.
The great thing about those courses is we can try new stuff and we can really experiment with different ideas. We can go off tangent if we need to. We can do really open-ended projects. And one of the most exciting things that I find is that we can do real-world projects. So we can focus in on problem solving using design thinking strategies.
I took the architecture course and cartography course, but I also did other things such as the outdoor adventure sport. And I think that the variety of courses offered here really covers a broad range of interests.
The Elements curriculum is focused on developing the key competencies, which is one of the best things about it. It's skills focused, so they're not focusing on what's the grade number that I'm getting for this, but rather they're focusing on how have I developed over this period of time.
The thing to notice in our school as well is the high quality of the teachers in the school. There's a real dedication to student achievement. We do get excellent academic results. We do get outstanding pathways to universities. But they never lose track of the fact that the goal is learning. great results or an outcome of great learning, and that's what we get out of school.
It's not like teachers are there at the top and the students are there just listening to them. It's a very interactive environment.
You support the teachers and they support you as well, sort of like a balanced thing that goes along in island school. In class, I feel comfortable to ask my teachers whatever questions I want to, and I know that even outside class that they will offer me support with my work.
Teachers here really empower their students and all students to push themselves to the best that they can be.
We often say that Island School is like no other school, and that's because we're not just focused on the curriculum and we don't stick to traditional methods. We like to understand each of our students as individuals and we work to unlock their potential. When we sit there in graduation, we see that young person and we remember the unique experience they had, the days that they challenged themselves to push further than they thought that was possible, the times that they've engaged in activities that have inspired them to work countless hours so that they can go well beyond the expectations of the people who are helping them.
So I hope what you picked up from those videos is the magic and the sparkle in the students' eyes. That comes from us being a school that understands our values, be prepared to hold ourselves to account to living those values, and that just creates an environment where we don't lecture students on rules, we don't have too many misfires in terms of people not behaving the way we want, because that is something that's passed on from student to student, older to younger, and it's in the DNA of the school. I'm not going to get in detail today into the curriculum. If you come along to Island School presentations or you jump on our website, you can get this information. But I would just point out that across the ISF secondary schools, we offer the middle years program in year 7, 8, and most of them do in year 9. Then we move towards IGCSE exams in year 10 and 11. That's largely because we've had tremendous success out of giving students a practice run at end of 2 years exams. It's quite a culture shock if you've never had to study a course for 2 years and be ready to deliver on a particular day. Doing that helps our young people, and the foundational knowledge supports those exceptional results. Then when they get to 12 and 13, they either do the diploma or they do the careers-related program. So in terms of the part that I will focus on in the curriculum, in the middle years, we keep about a third of the time and we deliver our own courses. Right? Our school, courses that Island School has developed. The first one of these in the area of elements. Now these all have names that don't scare students off. I have a course in elements that I have designed. It's on leadership. It's called Leadership Matters. And the point of the course is I have distilled down all of my leadership learning that I've got from being sent to some fantastic conferences and working with wonderful coaches. And I have broken that down so that students who are in year 10 and 11 are able to learn some of the formal aspects of leadership. I help them understand what leadership is. I help them understand their values and their approach to their life. I help them build their own leadership philosophy. And then we get into creating projects, and I give them the skills to design projects, to work with people, to resolve conflict, and also to communicate well and to bring people on board to want to participate. And the students are just so remarkably capable of learning that type of work that it just inspires me to go into the classroom every week, and I look forward to that as the highlight. And behind each and every one of those elements courses, you will find a similarly passionate and motivated teacher who wants to find a way to take unique knowledge and help their young people develop. And they don't have tests associated with it. And I think you would have picked that up in the video. And it means that students in that age group are really very motivated to come to school. We also, I guess in terms of the curriculum then, use that year 10, 9, 10, 11 space to help our young people decide what they should be doing in their post-schooling years. Okay, so that's the curriculum. Now there's a lot of people who haven't been through schooling, look back on their own, haven't had students in schooling, look back on their own lives and think the curriculum is the most important part about picking a good school. Well, I would challenge you with that. I think what's most important is about joining a school with a strong culture, because if you haven't had teenagers before, it gets very, very difficult to tell them anything. They are more likely to want to fit in beside their peers and learn good behaviours and unlock their own potential by being around people they enjoy and people who they want to belong with. That's the secret. So how do we build that sense of belonging? How do we make sure every Island School student know that they're an Islander and part of an enduring tradition? Well, we do that through a very strong pastoral care program. We have that student leadership and action work that goes on continuously. To be truthful, in many respects, I've never had a more difficult principal job, but I've never had an easier one, because the students are running so many aspects of it, because they are so motivated and they take up the opportunity to shape the school in the way they want. When I say it's difficult, that means I often sit across the desk lots of times listening to students pitch proposals, and sometimes I have to say no, and they're very difficult to say no to, and they won't take no once. They will come back with more information and a better argument, and many times they win the day. We have a strong focus on learning beyond the classroom, so if you look into our curriculum, you'll see that through that year 9, 10, 11 in particular, but not exclusively, we are helping our young people understand the globe, the world and its current circumstances, and we help them develop cultural understandings and knowledge that mean that by the time they leave school, they can move to the country that interests them. That can't just happen by chance, particularly like if you hadn't done any study about the US in the last 3 or 4 years, you left Hong Kong, you didn't know anything about that, wow, what an interesting and unusual place you would have thought you landed in. And that's pretty much the world at the moment. Students need to understand how COVID is affecting university. They need to understand how it's affecting the world of work. So we have times where, in our week, where we prioritise that kind of learning, and we find, you might say, well, that's bringing down the amount of academic time you do, and that's true. But it's inspiring them to keep learning and keep working, because they become very aware of the opportunities that await them. And one thing we never shortcut are the well-being and belonging programs. Keeping every student feeling like we're waiting for them to walk in the door, and helping them focus on their well-being is very important, particularly in this day and age where there's been so much unpredictability and so many challenges for them outside of school. So the pastoral system is delivered through the houses, the student leadership and action. Maybe I should just pick a couple of those, even though I know I'm running short of time. Culture House is an orphanage that the school founded in Nepal 26 years ago. Our students built the orphanage. They go back there every year to continue the next chapter of that work. We have an adopted community in Baiwan in China. Our students go there about 4 or 5 times a year, and they work and live in that community. Not just delivering English education, but also doing whatever it takes to help a relatively poor community to deal and improve their lives. So they're the very real things that happen in our school every day, and we don't just do it on top. It's part of the everyday experience. And that everyday experience also rolls out in a whole range of other areas where we show people how their knowledge connects to the outside world, and I've explained that. In terms of well-being and belonging, this is about something that I need to really focus on, and that is that if you choose Island School, and most ESF schools, you need to be prepared to sign on for the school life. So in the early years at Island School, we say you need to do 2 extracurricular activities. There are over 90. So if you can't find 2 that you enjoy, then it might be more about you than it is about the opportunities. And the reason for that is that if you don't, students just tend to move around the school with the students they're in class with, or the students that they enjoy having their lunch with. We need them to know everybody. And this is our opportunity to mix things up and to create that fabric in the school that I mentioned to you before. So this is the future that Island School is moving back to. Before I just proudly just show you a video on that, I would say that being an international school, you can expect that the facilities are both licensed to deliver international curriculum, but also that they are capable of delivering the school life that we all target. So you can imagine having those 90 different ECAs, all the different facilities you need, all the different people you need there to operate them. You will get that right the way across ESF. So in your decision-making process, I would really encourage you to come to one of the open days or get on the websites, because there are videos that will show you that type of thing. And I think it's also very useful to your young people to picture themselves in those positions doing those wonderful things. So by way of finishing today, I just want to show you a video to do with our redevelopment.
Island School is ESF's oldest secondary school. We've been around for over 50 years, and during that time we've played a seminal role in the development of Hong Kong. We're currently out of Chart 10. I think this is just a wonderful opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves.
There's a lot more student-led work, and that student-led work requires the use of space that you don't have in a traditional classroom. So what we're looking forward to is trying to make sure that the spaces we have allow the flexibility for the creativity to make sure the learning is suitable for the future generation of teaching and learning.
We're here for another 2 years. After that period of time, we'll be moving back to Hong Kong's most modern and most amazing educational facility. And when we get back there, we'll be able to apply all these ideas and take them to still yet another level. And that's because Island School is committed to being the best that we can be.
I think the last slide gives you just an email link if you're interested in inquiring about admissions. So I would do that even if you are one of those people who are very young, because we do have a process for admissions that the earlier you join, the more certain you are of securing your spot right the way through to secondary school. And I hope I've done enough today just to inspire you to look very carefully at ISF, and I hope you'll consider Island School at the same time. I'm going to hang around for questions outside. We probably need to clear the room, but I promised I would finish on time, and I think I'm about that stage. Evie, yep, she's giving me thumbs up. So can I thank you very much for being here this afternoon.
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you, Stephen.